Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. Only 6 days till we kick things off, which is amazing to think. So much preparation goes into it, but it really is upon us now. So I really wanted to hone in on a couple of finer details. It has been a pretty busy week. I would have liked to have got a couple more videos out a little more regularly, but I think this next week we'll be able to smash a few out and certainly get into the nitty-gritty of it. I wanted to discuss some structure issues, and if you were to be picking a team right here, right now, how you might go about it, or if you just wanted some clarification on how your team is taking shape. Now, in the coming days, I really want to have a look at the back line. I really want to look at the midfield, forward line, ruck, all that sort of stuff. I really want to go through every player that's basically relevant and touch on them, whether I think they're a good selection or not. So that'll be coming. And obviously some regular team updates. My team hasn't changed since I discussed it on the JLT wrap. So if you wanted to have a look at that with me and Langers, by all means, that'd be great. But as for this video, I just wanted to go line by line and discuss how my side is looking and how we might want to shape it up. Now, the back line is proving very strong. And I think from the top, the main things you're looking at is the confidence we have in premiums, mid-price options and rookies. That's basically what it comes down to. You know, where are the must-have mid-prices? Where do we have the most confidence in the premiums? And the rookies to an extent, but let's face it, we know pretty much where some good rookies are, but there are always surprises, so you can't say with full confidence. But the back line, I'm rolling with Laird, Whitfield, Witherden and Williams at the moment. I guess you could call that two out-and-out premiums with Laird and Whitfield. Now, Witherden is, I guess, he's on the verge, isn't he? You know, he's not quite a premium. He's certainly not a mid-pricer, because I tend to think that 250 to 400's mid-price, maybe to 450. He exceeds that at 455. But he's really a guy I expect to take the next step. And Williams is in a lot of teams. I wouldn't be scared off by the lack of JLT exposure. I'd be locking that in. In terms of what else should we be looking to identify, I think Robertson was a guy that was high on the discussion, but obviously very unfortunate circumstances, he will not be available and therefore is not the mid-price option that many of us were looking at. And I think he was proving fairly popular. Brodie Smith is another guy. He's priced at 330. He's in 36% of sides. I'm not super confident in that. I think he'll have a good season, but I don't think he's going to be a keeper. There's just something about it. I envision a mid-80s average, maybe high 80s. I just don't think he finds the ball enough within his own right. I know that he kicks the ball out and he's a beautiful ball user, but I don't think he finds the ball in the quantity that we would like. Andy McGrath is a guy that's being discussed. I'm a big fan of him. Can he get enough time through the midfield could be the question. I'm just throwing a few names out. This hasn't been a thoroughly researched video. I've literally got my laptop out and I'm having a look through at a few of the names, a few of the ownerships, and sort of looking at anyone owned more than 10%, because that's generally the type of popularity we're talking about. But overall, the backline is an interesting one, because I feel we have, compared to other seasons, the best array of defenders that we've seen. Often you might get a Deledio or a McVeigh or a Sam Mitchell, who's a midfielder, but they're in the back line. We have some genuine halfback flankers that are very, very good scorers. You know, the likes of Laird, Lloyd, obviously I've mentioned Witherden and Williams, you know, outstanding option. Williams is at that price, I think. And there's just a lot of other guys. I mean, Sicily has sort of cooled the Jets on because of his potential swingman opportunities, but Simpson looks as good as ever. I just feel overall there are a number of guys that are putting their hands up to have a fair bit of confidence in, which hasn't always been the case in years gone by, but I guess leaves us with an interesting situation because we have great rookies on offer. We have such confidence in those. I think we talk Collins, Clark, Scrimshaw and Hoare. They have to be right up there, and Dersmer as well looks like a guy. So, and I guess I'm always hesitant to talk about the rookies too much, because what do we really know? We know a fair bit now, but I've seen players that I thought were going to get named for sure not named, and then guys that we hadn't even considered pop up. So it's tough to predict, but I tell you what, very confident, and I think we all are in that boat. We are going to see these guys named round one. Collins for sure, Clark for sure, Hoare looks very, very certain, and I think Dersmer and Scrimshaw are in the same boat, looking very, very likely, which I think makes them all must-have opportunities at this stage. So who do I think are must-haves? And I'll do a must-haves video. I think you've got to have Williams and those rookies. I think you can assess your premiums on your own basis. You know, Laird and Lloyd, I don't feel as if they're must-haves. We've argued the point about Lloyd on previous videos. I don't see eye to eye with everyone on that one, but that's just how I see it. So definitely a lot of rookies on offer. The back line for me, and probably for you, has been the easiest position so far. There has not been much movement at all. In fact, I've had the same back line for weeks and weeks. I haven't touched it. Of course, the rookies change, but I haven't had any difference in that top five for probably since it started. I think Collins has always looked like a really good pick, and I haven't changed my thoughts on my top four defenders. So I think it's the easiest we've got. But moving into the midfield, it's not quite the same. We definitely have some things to think about. And I think it's worth discussing the structure and how it's going to look for you. Now, I think we should be going along the lines of this. Now, it's fair to say that Liberatore is a must-have. Is that fair out there, ladies and gentlemen? I think it's fair. He's looked the goods in the pre-season, playing midfield, attending the centre bounces, looking very, very good. And he's 300k. So I think we can already say that, look, we're going to have one mid-pricer in our side. And let's see if the numbers reflect how much percentage. He's only in 32% of sides. I thought that might have been above 40, but 32 is still pretty popular. I mean, that puts him right up there in the sort of top 10 to 12 most popular players through the midfield. What else do we have to think about? Must-have premiums. And in terms of structure, I think most people will go with 4 premiums, genuine premiums, and Liberatore at M5. Perhaps they go a bit beefier, go 5 premiums and Liber at 6. And perhaps that 5th midfielder is a Brad Crouch, a Tommy Rockcliffe, dare I say it. And dare I say it, I'm bloody doing it at the moment. Don't hold me to that. Don't hold me to that. But at the moment, he is sitting there, much to your disgust in the SuperCoach world out there. But those premiums, who do we have to have? You know, who are the must-have guys? Cripps. Took me a little bit to come around, but he's in there. Oliver has just about made himself almost. You got to go. I know he's had some shoulder reconstructions, but he looked delightful through the pre-season. And I think Fife is still one to 100% be considered. I know I dropped him. I was worried about not seeing him at all. Same with Kelly. I would like, my sort of rule, I like to see some exposure in the preseason. If it's just one game, one half, I like to see it, and we didn't get it. So that was my reasoning for that. Let me just readjust this to price. Look, McRae, there's been, you guys will be shouting at me saying, why is McRae not a lock? I'll do a video about that. I've already done a video about that. I'll extend and discuss a bit of a potential, I guess, money where your mouth is situation in a minute. But I think, personally, you've got to have Cripps. I think Oliver is just about a must-have. Let's have a look at these percentages in terms of ownership. You've got Cripps at 53, Oliver at 25%. That actually shocks me. I hadn't looked at that for a little while, but having said that, McRae's at 23%. So, that's quite interesting. But clearly Cripps is the one that people are viewing as you've just got to have him. Lockie Neal's proving popular as well. Fair bit of love for Cornelio after an outstanding JLT. Dustin Martin is also one that I personally think you got to have. I mean, I've had him from the very start. My midfield guys that have been in there from the get-go has been Oliver, Martin and Matt Crouch. I'm big on Matt Crouch. I reckon he's well under his genuine price. I think he's great value. So there are a few premiums to really build your side around. Super premiums that they say. The ones that you can rely on. They're going to be a captaincy option. Will not give you a headache. And you spend the big bucks and you rest easy. Brad Crouch, Rockcliffe, Liberatore, Zach Merritt's a bit cheaper. Rory Sloane's a bit further down there as well. There's people like that to discuss. I really like Brad Crouch as an option. I really do. To be honest, things are going to have to change with my side because I do feel I don't have my exact rookies. I would like to get Dersma. I probably need another 15 or 20k. So something's probably going to have to change. I'm hoping that a 102k rookie sort of surprises us and gets named, but that may not happen. But look, I was saying that because the only reason I've preferenced Rockcliffe is because he's a bit cheaper and literally 13k cheaper, but that has helped me just arrange a few more quality rookies. The midfield as a whole, as I said, I think you got to have Cripps, you got to have Liver, you got to have Sam Walsh. I mean, if you're going to really boil things down, they are three guys that I just think will be in a lot of teams. I can see why people may not go with Liver because of his off-field stuff, and he is coming back from a knee, but on the evidence we've been given, he looks like a juicy option. So find yourself at least four premiums that you really like and lock them in. Then maybe go a Liver, or maybe don't stuff around at all. Maybe you just go 5 out-and-out premiums and round it off with rookies. Constable, Bailey Scott, Atkins, lock him in. I'm telling you, as a Geelong supporter, he'll not only play, but I think he could average nice. I mean, he's not going to be a big ball winner, but he's going to tackle hard. He's got experience in the VFL. Lock him in, absolutely. But I think we've got enough rookies to like. I do feel as if, Walsh has just made himself an outstanding option, which many of us probably thought he could do anyway. But he's really slammed the door down. Just having a look at some potential other options. I'm just around the 123k mark here. I mean, we've certainly got enough options, I say. Like Bewley's another guy. It's not as though we're overflowing. Like a few of these guys are able to be selected in other lines too. So it might be a bit of a break-up depending where you have them. Nick Hind is still quite popular. I'm not exactly sure how much opportunity we'll get, but certainly Bailey Scott looks to have cemented himself. Luke Valenti was a guy, I believe he's injured at the minute or under some sort of cloud. Now we're into the 102, and obviously Gibbons has been the man there. So as a general rule, I do like to encourage keeping the midfield simple. You can back it in. There's going to be the very best players in there. Yes, we spend a bit of coin, but and out of anywhere on the ground, you have the most amount of confidence and ability to select the top 6 to 8. We know that Cripps is going to be up there and Oliver will finish top 6 mid. You can have confidence, where sometimes in the other lines we go, I like him, but I don't have that out-and-out genuine confidence, where these guys you do. So if you like Libba, then work him in. But I think you've got to have 4 primos. I mean, that's basic stuff. But there might be someone out there who's doing SuperCoach for the first time. But load up in your midfield, pay that coin, get the guns, and round it out with some Liberatore, Crouch, or Rockcliffe action if you like those. Got to have Walsh in there and the rookies that I mentioned. They'll round out your team. There'll be options. There's always rookie options for the midfield. Moving on to the ruck department. And quite simply, Grundy has made himself a must-have too. He's in 44% of sides. And interestingly, Gawn is in 41. I thought people would have really gone off him. And personally, I have. I just don't like the fact that on any given day, any given week, depending on the opposition, depending on Gawn's fitness, Bruce could be unleashed. And they're not going to share it 50-50. Gawn's still going to do the majority of it. But he's been brought to the club not just as pure insurance. This man wants to play senior footy. So I have concerns that if Gawn plays 20 games, 15 of them are solo, or 14 are solo, and he's averaging 115 to 120 through those. But my concern is there'll be a handful of games, and whether his average is truly affected or not is hard to gauge. But I just do not like the idea that Goodwin and his men might just trial it for a month, or they want to see how it looks, or they like how it looks and they stick with it, and all of a sudden Gawn is sharing it 70-30, 80-20. And it's just something that would frustrate me in the fact that Gawn could not do it all game and couldn't truly reach his out-and-out potential. You know, we know that ruckmen score and average their very best when they are shouldering the load. So I think that's what we've got to look for, and there's doubt there for me. That's why I've gone Grundy, and I'm a big fan of him. And that R2 position has been one that's been much discussed. I don't feel there is a legitimate mid-price option. I'm going to scroll through here just to see if there is anything that the people out there are liking. You've got Wits at 4%, Lyset's in 5%, Lob's in 4%. I would not be going anywhere near Rory Lobb. 4% for Mumford, get him out of your side, missing games, and I don't think he'll come back like everyone thinks. Vardy's in 4%, it's a bit more than some others. And as I continue, Zach Clark's in 23% of sides, presumably for R3 for most. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone there, but I think the ruck, you want to play it pretty safe. And I'm talking from a guy who's experienced some tough times through the ruck. You know, you go a mid-pricer in the secondary ruck position, it can just kill you because there's just nowhere to hide. You know, you just get a guy in and he's not averaging well. It's very, very difficult to find a guy on the bubble. You know, there's not many bubble boys. It's different in the midfield where you might have a stack of options to actually go with if something were to go wrong. But often in the ruck, we might not even have an R3 playing, you know, no one around the rookie. And it's too early in the season to find 200k, and you want to spend 200k elsewhere. All of a sudden, you're left with a really awkward sort of Tom Bellchambers, Matthew Leuenberger style of years gone by, where they're just sitting there and scoring 66 and then 82. And, you know, they're not having shocking seasons, but they're not doing what you wanted. So my strong advice would be go 2 premium types. To go Gawn and Grundy, I think it breaks the bank too much. I think you'd throw your team balance out too much. But if you want to go with it, it's hard to see anyone else being the top 2 rucks, so I can see your theory there. But if you wanted to just find an extra 100 to 150k, then I think you're looking at Martin or Goldstein. You might look at McAvoy. Only 1% of people are, but you might. My advice, to be clear, would be Goldstein or Martin for that R2 position. And I don't think I'd be going anywhere else, to be honest. And unless there is an R3 that pops up as a good bench option, just go 102k guy that you can do as a loophole. It's pretty simple on that front. And moving on to the forward line. Really interesting, the forward line, because it's got such a mix. I think Dangerfield and Heaney are two of the biggest locks in the whole competition. Get them in your side and enjoy the ride. But aside from that, I don't have much confidence at all in any of these premium options. And the rookies on face value look extremely weak. You know, Drew looks all right. Parker, Petrocelli. Let me just scroll down and get to that sort of stuff. But I don't think there's a great deal of options. I'm hoping for a surprise. Who have we got? I'll just get up to about the one. Setterfield's at 144, obviously. You know, he's going to be super popular, of course. Noah Bolter is in 21% of sides, but I don't see him getting regular games. I don't think once Lynch and Rewalt are in there and you got Nankervis and potentially Soldo playing, I don't see it happening. Burgess is in there. You know, he looks like a guy that in a weak and depleted Gold Coast could definitely get opportunities. But that's the interesting thing, is we probably need 4 or 5 rookies. Most people, given, in my opinion, and I think most, that the forward line options aren't very bankable. You know, you wouldn't be putting your house on a lot of them, aside from Dangerfield or Heaney. Therefore, most people will go with 3 premiums and round it out with rookies, or maybe a mid-pricer. Now, I speak of these premiums, no, just going down. Hawkins, it's a no. Westhoff, I don't think so. Maybe if you want a ruck option, but I'm not a big fan. I think his numbers are going down. Franklin has had a shocking pre-season. Menengola is a handy option, and I can see the theory in that. Devon Smith, proven to be very good. But you got to pay top dollar this year. Tom McDonald, Robbie Gray, Jack Gunston. Yeah, I'm not big fans there. David Mundy. You know, I mean, just to clarify on the Robbie Gray, I just don't trust his body. Now, people will say, but he's played regular games the last couple of seasons. He's always a flight risk. He forever will be. I can't trust him. David Mundy, I think he's not the worst option. I think he's going to get some good midfield minutes, and he's a reliable, safe one. He's not going to go 100 plus, but I think he's a real reliable bet for somewhere in the mid-90s. You're not going to go Bruce, and then that brings you a real interesting trio of Dunkley, McLean, Kelly. I think you should have one of these guys. I really like them, like how they're priced, like their propositions. McLean and Dunkley, and throw Libber into the mix, they all seem to affect one another. Now, to have 2 of them, you almost feel as if you're going to be winning and then losing sometimes. They almost seem to be vying for similar midfield minutes, and there just isn't clarity. And Beveridge seems to struggle to find clarity himself, and maybe he just likes to throw the magnets around sometimes. Dunkley showed extreme good signs in the last JLT. I think McLean, we would have liked to see a bit more through the pre-season to get that confidence. And I'm a Kelly fan. He's in my side. And the main thing that gives me the confidence is that I know he'll be playing midfield. There's no resting him on a half-forward flank or hiding in a forward pocket. Geelong will play him through the middle. And the numbers reflect that. He's in 14% of sides, 9 for Dunkley and 5% for McLean. Wallace is a sneaky pick. He's not the worst in the world. You wouldn't go Jack Rewalt, nor would you go Hogan or Robinson or Lambert. Wingard's injured. Cross him off. Akers, no. Boak has shown signs, but it's still a no from me. I still think he'll play a bit more forward. And Walters, he's got to be a no for me, even though he's had an encouraging pre-season. 7% of people have DeGoey. Surprising. And Jack Darling, don't mind it. I personally try to steer clear of those key forwards unless they're Lance Franklin or Nick Rewalt or Brown in his prime. Maybe Darling, you know, he was doing those sort of numbers. I think he was averaging 97 before he got injured. There was a 14, a -1, hence he's priced at 470. It's food for thought. And then it really starts to drop away as we go down. And just to continue on there, you know, you've got guys like, where are we? I've lost the mouse there. Jack Billings at 437. Now, yeah, he's hurt us, but I think he's a good option. I think he's a solid option. He's shown in the pre-season that he's back to some of his good ball-winning form. The Saints will struggle. I don't see his ceiling being too high, but I think you'll see some real regular 90s and 100s. I do. I really do. I'm backing him in. Who else have we got? I'm just scrolling through and having a look at a few that pop out in terms of percentage. Dalhouse is in 6% of sides, but I'll tell you now, don't pick him. He's going to play as a tackling forward option. And look, I know Smith did it nicely, but I don't think, I'm a Geelong supporter. I'll back some in, but if they're not, I'm going to tell you, and I would not pick him. Warple's in 11% of sides. Clearly, people have identified him as a man who can gather a lot more ball now that Mitchell is not in that midfield, and I can fully understand that. I just have a bit of concern over the fact that he's $395k. He's not cheap, and he's played, 9 games, albeit very impressive. Looks like a hard nut, mature beyond his years, but for me, I didn't want to go too many mid prices, and I've got 2. If you want to count Williams, I've got 3. So I didn't want to go a 4th, particularly one as inexperienced as him. And look, it probably starts to taper off there. You've got Toby Green, who's in 18% of sides, but surely he comes under the category of, if we were ever going to consider him, he needed to have a flawless preseason. It hasn't been flawless. We've seen him, but it hasn't been for a full game, and it hasn't been unbelievable stuff that we've seen. And he doesn't have numbers behind him that suggest he's a must-have if he's fit, We've seen good averages, but not great. I think 96 was outstanding, but I just think there's a lot of risk with that injury because it has reoccurred so often. Let's just continue on here and see if anyone sort of pops out. We're just about to duck below that 300k mark. Doesn't seem to be anyone, certainly no one that I've strongly considered. Aaron Vandenberg's in 4% of teams. That's amazing. Look, I know it's only 4%, but generally he's the sort of name that I would just see him 0 or 1%. Unbelievable. Jamie Elliott, he's bumped up to 11% of sides, clearly off the back of a really encouraging performance, 280k. But I just see him averaging about 80, and if that suits you, then that's great. But for a guy who I don't think has great numbers behind him anyway, and an extremely flaky body, I just think you're better off spending an extra 150 or 160k and getting a reliable player, or saving 160 by going down. I know he's a nice type and he's cheaper than he should be, but I don't think he ticks enough boxes for me personally. Lincoln McCarthy, good pre-season. He's in 4% of teams. And Darcy Moore, obviously I've done a player profile on him before, and I like him. I definitely, probably a month or so ago, put him on the radar and thought, look, this guy's, I know he's a bit, sour in the mouth sometimes. People think he should be better and he cops a lot of criticism, but he looks to have found his role in the back line. 23% of sides. He's going to take a few kickouts. Reads the play really well. He did it a couple of times last year, scored a 91, and in his 68 that he scored, he actually had a lot of spoils. So he can read the play and get to it before his opponent. If he starts marking a few, and he's a very, very good talent, then all of a sudden that's not the worst decision. So I can see why he is in a few sides, and I'm considering him. I probably can't afford him, but certainly considering him. So that probably rounds it out. And people might go Rosie, and there's a few other guys that you might consider on the higher end of a rookie price. But generally speaking, rookies are going to be tough to find. But look, hopefully this video has been of some benefit to you. Obviously, off the cuff, sometimes it's good to do videos that are thoroughly researched with the numbers in front of you. Other times I like to just get the laptop out and sort of speak and just go as it comes, or take it as it comes. But more or less, I think most of us are confident in what structure we're running with. But if you needed some sort of encouragement or just something to provoke a few thoughts, hopefully this has provided that. So thanks again for tuning in. I'll certainly hope to pump out quite a few videos over the next 7 days. You know, obviously footy starts on Thursday night, but we still have a bit of movement even before the weekend. We just got to lock away our Tigers and our Blues and stuff like that. But definitely over the next week, there'll be a lot of videos. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all the subscribers that have come on board, particularly the last week or so. It's been a lot, which is great to see. So appreciate the support, and I'll be back soon. Cheers.